Okay, I'm back. So what we have here, we have a sketch. This is the objective that we're trying to create. Not this particular design, but just using colored pencil and precision through this process of wedging forms together. And eventually you can use a graphite pencil, a light coating, to create volume for these forms, with at the same time you're creating this interior structure. So here's my quick sketch. Do I want to go with that? I don't know. We'll see. The first pencil you're going to use is this orange. What's the title of it? They call it vermilion. The reason why we're using this is because it is the lightest value out of these three values. So we're going to use, I got to sharpen this again. We're going to use orange for the starting point, red for areas that we're articulating in terms of the exterior of the form, and then blue once we finish the wedge to outline the exterior of the wedged parts. That's the plan. All right. First things first, I'm just going to throw a rectangle in. Not a rectangle, a cuboid. But what I don't have with me today is my T-square. Actually, I do, but I don't have a foam board paper to utilize the T-square and slide up and down. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my paper, and I'm going to use my ruler here and try to get straight lines. So I'm just going to slide everything, but if you want to use a T-square to get your vertical lines, you just want to make sure that your paper is taped perfectly to a line or an edge, so when you do slide across, it's going to be vertical lines. Another thing you can do, you don't have to go with vertical lines, you can go with diagonal lines for your verticals, and then everything else will be also a diagonal. So every line can be a diagonal. But if you want to keep it simple, just go with vertical lines. That's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to line this form up right here. This will be a corner of something. I'm just going to extend the line a little bit more. What do I want to do? One thing you want to stay away from is trying to make something so central in the beginning. So for example, I'm guilty of it here, but I did make this big block in the center. And it's kind of hard because then you start to just put things on it. But it is a good move to put something central. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a line going this way. I'll talk about something in a moment. So before I go any further, I'm just going to make a diagonal line going this way first. And then I'm going to make a diagonal line going this way. The reason why this diagonal line isn't as severe as this one, so this one kind of goes up on a little more of an angle. This one goes up on a little less of an angle. It's the long side of the form that's always going to be on a less of an angle. When you draw from observation and you're looking at a box, if you see the long side, typically that angle is going to be more of a horizontal line compared to the one on the left. The one on the left is going to be more severe of an angle, and it all depends on your viewpoint. But this one will always be lower than that one. So now that I've figured out my letter Y, I call it the starting point. This is where you bring your sliders in. And this is where you're going to slide down. And I always like to stand when I do this, but I don't want you to see the top of my bald head. So I'm going to slide it over here. Okay. When I slide, I line up the ruler with that. I put my weight on this guy. I slide this over to the left, and then I can slide this down. Oh, I just screwed up. I gotta do that all over again. And that's what happens. Don't feel you were close, like, it's close enough, I'll just mark the line. You don't want to make the mistake. All right, now I can slide this down wherever I want along the line, and I can make a diagonal line. Okay. Same thing with this guy. Good. Now, if I had my T-square, I would just throw a couple lines in here, but wherever you want these to end, make them end. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my ruler and put it right on the edge of the paper. That way I know I'm making a perfect vertical line, because it doesn't really matter where this ends for me. I'm not too concerned about it. So I'm just gonna throw the end point here. Notice how that misses it just a smidge. I'm gonna connect it. Good. I'll end this guy here, because again, I didn't want this to, a second, I gotta stand up. I didn't want this to be too central, nor did I want it to be too high or too low. So by doing this, this object is over to the left slightly. It's just off center. That's the main thing. Once you locate where those edges are, you can put the rest of the cube in, and I'm just going to, now that I'm standing, it's going to go a little faster. Oops. In many cases, you're going to have to figure out, first, you want to slide like this just to see if you can get where you're trying to get to. So you have to rotate your sliders, and it can get frustrating at times because you just can't get to where you want to get to. But you just do it a few times and then good. All right, so that is finished. That's just a simple rectangle. Do I want to wedge this guy on there? Why not? I think I will. Actually, in this case, I think I'm going to do a sphere. Maybe I'll do a sphere. Not a sphere, a cylinder. So if I'm going to draw a cylinder, and I can maybe sketch my cylinder in really quickly. Say I want to draw my cylinder, the top of the cylinder right here. And then I draw the cylinder down. And that means the cylinder might end right here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to draw a cylinder from here to here, about this wide, and about this wide. So pretty big. I can always slice it up if I want to later on. So I'm kind of working large to small. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna put a horizontal line in. Whenever you draw a cylinder, and this is kind of an important thing, a cylinder or that thing, a cone, you're gonna want to draw it as if it's not in perspective, or as if it's a flat form in the beginning. What I mean by that is that I'm going to draw my ellipses by creating an ellipse template with the minor axis and the major axis, as you see here, so I can draw my ellipse. Reason being, and the reason I'm saying this is because this is a vertical form, and so this is also going to be a vertical form. It just comes out better. Trust me on that. If you draw a cylinder, like I did here, on a diagonal, which I might do as well, then you're going to draw it as if it's a cuboid first. As you can see here, this is drawn out of a cuboid, but it's on a diagonal going this way, or if it's a diagonal going this way. But if it's vertical up or vertical down, stick with this system of drawing it the way I am right now. So I said I'm going to go about this wide. And what I'm doing is I'm lining up, these graph rulers are excellent because I'm lining up the graph ruler with the line, and then I just put it next to the point that I created, and I know that I'm going to have a vertical line. And so this is going to overlap that. I could have probably overlapped it a little bit more, but in this case, I'm just going to keep it the way I want it. This is the other thing to figure out. How big is this ellipse? If this ellipse is too small, it's going to look like you're looking at this at a different viewpoint than you are looking at the top of this plane. So you want these planes, or the width of the ellipse, to be similar to how you see this plane. So if this was a perfect cube, right? And a perfect cube would probably be out to here a little bit, meaning that the width and the depth and the width of this would be the same. So imagine if it was out to here. I think that would be more cube-like. And you were to draw an ellipse within that cube, it would look like this. It would be about that big. But this is also about that wide. So that means that this ellipse here would be just a little smaller than what this is. So I'd say about from here to here, and again, I'm guesstimating, from about here to here, which is about, I'm just kind of guesstimating here, about that big. So I think it's safe to say that the height of the ellipse, if I were to draw this ellipse in here, would be about, it would feel it's in the same viewpoint as looking at the top of this box. If I was looking at the top of this as if it was a soup can, it would feel similar as if it's the top of that box. I'm gonna just make it slightly bigger because I think it was close, but I think it was just a little short. All right, so that's gonna be the bigger part. I'm gonna take the same distance and put it down here. I can't measure that distance, but what I can do is I can just get a sheet of paper, and this is a fast way of doing something. I get a sheet of paper and I mark the top, I mark the bottom. I bring it down to the bottom, I line the bottom point up with it, and I just mark the top point. Once I mark the top point, I get my ruler, I line it up with the existing vertical line, throw it in. Got it? Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a vertical line through the center of this whole thing. It almost feels like that is which is the corner of this box, could be the vertical line, but I don't know yet. So what I'm going to do now, to find the vertical line, to find the center, cross my corners. Always find the center, which is right here, the center of that space. Then I can take that center point and I can draw it all the way down. If you're wondering what that noise is, that's my son downstairs banging on something, I think. So remember I said that line from the corner of this thing was really close to it, or it was almost seemed like it was right on that corner. It does, it appears very close to it. They almost share it so much that it's going to cause confusion for me later, I'm sure of it. The reason I'm crossing this corner here, not to see if it lines up with that, but to also put a center line through this. And up here. Oops. All right. So now I can put my ellipse in. And what I'm going to do, use my red color for this, just so you can see what I'm doing, and eventually I would outline it in red. And anyway, but what I'm going to do when I draw my ellipse is I make myself a nice arc here. And since I'm going to do the same exact ellipse down here, I'm going to put a nice arc here. I'm going to put an arc here, put an arc here, and so forth. And now I'm going to connect my arcs. That was a baby arc, that was a baby arc. If you're wondering what I did here, I did little baby arcs. Notice I'm rotating the paper when I put my ellipses in. When you put your ellipses in, always know that this turn is constantly turning. It never flatlines. It will never ride that flat line, ever. And it will never point on the corners, ever. The more you make your ellipses, the better you're going to get. At first, it's going to feel awkward and strange and weird, but if you just rotate your paper, practice, it will help you out. I'm using this paper so my hand doesn't smear the color pencil. I already did that arc. I don't know why I'm doing that. And you got to go a couple times, meaning that you have to kind of get the motion in your hand before you, or going back and forth to make sure that you are making that nice curve. It's not going to happen in one mark. And the reason why this template's here is because we know where the center of everything is, and that's where these forms turn. So if you commit to that, your ellipses will always be ellipses. And the reason why I have to master your ellipse, because there are so many ellipses on this drawing, because you're going to find out how one shape hits the top plane of another shape. And that's what's going to happen down here. The reason why these ellipses are the same height is because we're not using perspective. We're not drawing a perspective. We're drawing parallel line drawing. So this is going to be the same as that. These angles are the same. They're parallel to one another. So we're not worried about this getting bigger, because that's what would happen in reality, and this is not reality. The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go back to my orange, and I'm going to sketch a similar ellipse right around here, and I'm trying to figure out where this ellipse would come in, because basically what I want to happen is I want this ellipse to come in about here, hit this, and come down and end about right here. That's the goal. So if I rough this in with a sketch, it helps me figure out where that can happen. So now I can locate where I want my ellipse to be. I want my ellipse to be about right here. So this is going to be the bottom, about right here, right? Remember that I measured my ellipse. Since I have those 2 marks right there, I'm just going to use those again. And I want this to be the bottom. And I want this to be the top. Okay? So now I'm just going to draw the ellipse. Actually, I'm going to move it up because I didn't line it up to where I wanted it to be. So go ahead. Move it up just a smidge. I changed my mind. Let's go right here and right here. So the 2 high ones. There we go. That's better. Right here. Right here. Okay. I should have used my orange there because I'm using my red for the lips themselves at the moment. But I'm gonna go back to my orange. It's just starting to dull out, and the red was nice and sharp. That's why I kind of started to gravitate towards the red. And I'm making a video and I don't have much time to sharpen my pencil. All right, so here's the center. Notice that the center is a little off from the other center. It's probably just because I didn't, I'm using a dull pencil and human error and all sorts of stuff. So it's not always going to be dead on perfect. But you want it close, as close as you can get it. Because once I put this ellipse in, which goes right here, there's the arc. Turn it this way. Here's this arc. Turn it this way. Here's this arc. Turn it this way. It's a little bit different from my original drawing, which is fine, my sketch. But I'm committed to this. And if it's a little, if it doesn't hit where you want it to hit, then you're going to have to move the ellipse. But this one will hit in a decent spot, so I'm okay with it. I kind of wish it was a little lower. Not the end of the world. So it intersects that guy about right here. It's a little bit to the right of where I want it to be, but see this line and the line of the ellipse, they intersect each other about right here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to draw a line vertically down. I'm not connecting to a point like I did with the cone, because the cone is a cone and this is flat. So all I have to do is just draw a line vertically down. And in this case, it's just going to go down to the end of here because it's kind of hanging on the side. What do I do next? I erase the other parts so you can see what happened. And I think I'm just going to try to perfect this ellipse a little bit more. There we go. All right. Now I can erase the exterior of this. And I can erase the interior of this. But I'm lightly erasing this stuff. And what I'm going to do now is, as you can see here, I'm going to use my blue pencil. That's just to kind of get a sense of what I'm looking at. I'm going to use my blue pencil and I'm going to outline everything else. But before I do that, do it with my red pencil too. Just the outline, the exterior. This goes here, and this goes down here. And you can see it kind of hanging on the side. But if I do use my blue pencil, where are you? There we are. Because the blue is the darkest value that I'm using, therefore it's going to pop out more, and it's going to be the more of the committed line. And remember, this is always in flux, so you might change your mind and you might have to erase the blue, but that's fine. These are erasable colored pencils, and that's why we're using them. So you can see I outline that there. I'm going to outline this here. Use my ruler. Always, if there's a straight line, use a ruler, because it's just going to look terrible if you don't. And right where it meets that corner, which I might even just draw the corner, part of the corner in. Right there, this is where the ellipse changes, or begins. And transitions right back into that line. All right, so that is a cylinder wedged on top of a rectangle. I'm going to pause the video now, and we'll try to do one more complex